reading and knowing about a lot of the extracurricular or the extra ex music and non-musical aspects of the rock business. I had a lot of resentment, let's say, against certain musicians, and so I got this idea of making a video about the worst actors, the nastiest, most disgusting. But then I was thinking, why? Why go on the negative? And this is always out in the public, and people are talking, and of course, you have this very partisan approach of the music-loving public. If they like a certain band, then they will also like the musician, and if they don't like it, they won't like it. And of course, I can mention a lot: Metallica, Kiss, and then so on and so forth. Very contentious. But then I thought, you know what? There's one thing that people don't talk about enough. It is being talked about here and there, but they don't talk about it enough, and that's the good guys within rock and roll. So the assumption is that most of them are bad guys, and that's not completely untrue. But I think that sometimes a musician is being mentioned, and then people say, "Oh, he was also a very nice guy and a good guy, and he did this and that good thing." But people don't really give kudos or credit where credit is due. So I'm going to start with one whom with whom musically I have pretty much nothing to do. I wish I had, but that's Sammy Hagar of course Van Halen fame, but also in Montrose and has his own solo stuff. I was never a huge fan of pretty much anything he did, although the first Montrose record is very, very noteworthy, and maybe also belongs in the video that I made about the casualties of the 70s. I think I should have inserted it there. So I'm retroactively putting that record in there. So Sammy Hagar, just a nice, sweet, classic guy, even at the height of the most ugliest that it got with DLR, whom I can't stand. Although even that guy has one positive thing, maybe at a different point I'll mention that. But DLR always went down and below the belt and was very arrogant and pushing himself in there. Even if what he said was very often true. But Sammy Hagar was always a gentleman. He always held back when he did react. It wasn't like lashing out and going dirty or nasty or below the belt. So always held himself like a gentleman, and I really appreciate it. So I wish I was a bigger fan of his music, but I'm not. But super great guy. Another no-brainer is of course Alice Cooper, who I think for the entirety of his career, or at least definitely the last 50 or 60 years, the second 60 years of his career. I'm just being facetious. The last 30 or 40 years of his career, he's always was like a gentleman, no cussing, no coming down, no talking trash about other people. If he didn't like someone or didn't like something, he just stayed away from it. He made some political statements, but also in good taste. I think I think at a certain point, a journalist asked him about the Gulf War, I think, the first or the second Gulf War, and his response was, "Why do you ask a rock star? You know, we're stupid, we're bums, we sleep at 12 o'clock, we get drunk, we take drugs, all we know is this rock and roll partying. Why would you even ask our political opinion, right?" The perfect answer. Gene Simmons never answered that, although he's a little bit more intelligent when he doesn't do completely crazy stuff. Another super nice guy is Geddy Lee, and I should add from the same band, Neil Peart also was a super nice, and actually Alex also, but Geddy was always in the limelight. He was getting most of the interviews and the questions. Also, always came through as like super chill, super nice, uh, great, cool dude, always respectful to everybody, to the fans, to other musicians, never come down on someone, never spit on anybody. So very nice, classy, and gentleman-like. Another one who is very similar is Dan Roser, also known as Buck Dharma from the Blue Oyster Cult. Also very sweet, chill, always ready to talk to people, down to earth, just a super nice guy, and as far as I know, there's nothing in the BOC with backstabbing and all the nasty stuff that's unfortunately so common in the rock and roll world. There was definitely a fallout with the Bouchard brothers, as we know, but I don't remember anything that he would have done that was nasty or dirty or backstabbing to any of them. In fact, I think he even helped them get back. This Joe, was it Joe or Albert? I forget already the history a little bit, but he kind of helped them a little bit come back in the latter years, sporadically, of course, temporarily, but on some gigs and shows and things of that nature. So Don Roser of the Blue Oyster Cult, again, a super nice guy. Now, at this point, you may say, hey, wait a minute. You didn't kill somebody, you didn't rob a bank, so now you want a cookie, you want an honorable mention. In some way, yes, because we are so used to it that this is kind of becomes the norm, that all the gossip and the dirt and the backstabbing and the crapping on one another, that it became so normalized that maybe in some way we do have to recognize people who do what they're supposed to do, right? What is the baseline for anybody else. But again, where they are with all the millions and the fame and the fortune, I think it makes sense to mention it. And again, I'm trying to pick those who could have done, or who in a normal situation would have done something dirty or nasty, but they didn't. Another one, this one is nothing to do with the hard rock and heavy metal kind of music, but Glenn Campbell, also a guy who had his struggles and his hard times on a personal level, but always came out on top, always came out a super nice gentleman. He's very good friends with Alice Cooper, and I think for a long time already, 30, 40 years. Well, Glenn Campbell is deceased. I think he departed in 2018. Same year as Danny Kirwan, who also should be mentioned here. But let's get back to Glenn Campbell. Those of you who don't know him musically, he's I think it's most often described as country music. So acoustic guitar, finger picking, very adept, very great guitar player. But also was always super nice, and even when he did dirty stuff and bad stuff, he didn't do it in a nasty, explosive way, in a way to put people down and ruin their lives and just go on with a hateful and nasty feud. So definitely deserves to be mentioned here. Another one who's like a super nice, chill, laid back, cool dude is Nico McBrain. But you may say that I'm being unfair because Maiden was always like kind of like a drama-less band. Even when they get with it, when they sacked Paul Di'Anno and Bruce, and when Smith departed, it was done very smoothly, very gentlemanly. No one knows really what happened underneath the external layers, underneath the surface, because they did it in a way that no one would even look. So always arranged it in a very professional and gentleman manner, and I think all bands should be jealous of them. At least if not for the music and the fame and all of the success, that all of the madness that goes with Maiden, I think they are the band that handled the money and the fame and the merchandising kind of things with not selling out on the music better than any other band. Although you could mention Motorhead and AC/DC also kind of in a very same vein, right? So for example, Kiss, they like outright hoard themselves out, right? It's like prostitution, too much, both on the merchandising and affecting the music. The music in and of itself was always geared toward it. But I think Maiden, more than anybody else, held their own. So they could do the merchandising, the records and the shirts and the posters and the merchandise and all that without really affecting the quality of the music, and definitely not to the point of selling out. So great band there. Nevertheless, I think that Nico McBrain, the drummer, the amazing drummer who just recently had a stroke, unfortunately, and retired from big touring, I think he deserves an honorary mention because he's always so nice and always so forthcoming, and he has other businesses, and whoever had interactions with him just always says the best things about him, whether it's professional, whether it's fans. He always gives fans the time of day, which is important. People pay money to come see you and they have a certain expectation. So living up to that is very nice. So I think Nico definitely deserves an honorable mention, which reminds me of an episode that Geddy Lee was very nice. I forgot in which interview he said it, but he recalled early in their career that they were at the end of a tour and they were very tired, and I think that was somewhere in Europe, and there were fans waiting for them somewhere, and they were driving there, and there was a group of fans, and he was just so tired and messed up, and just didn't have the nerve that he told the driver to do a 180 and bring them to where they were going probably to their hotel, and that later on he thought about it, and he felt very bad and had remorse, so he decided there on the spot never to do something of the sort. So I thought that that was very human and very respectful and nice and a good a beautiful touch from the human perspective. There's actually a similar story with Motorhead. He was touring with another band, and one of the members of the other band started complaining, "Oh, now we're gonna go back to the hotel and we have to deal with the fans and Lemmy told him, "What are you talking about? I'm worried about the day that they won't be there, right? What a perspective! Respect and appreciate what you have. You don't have a lot of people who do that, unfortunately. And last but not least, I want to mention one that's not so known outside of the crazy tech guitar world, but Buckethead, who had his identity concealed for a very long time, but just a super, super sweetheart, a person who always appreciated his fans, always appreciated whoever they worked with, and they acknowledged the technicians and the engineers and the lighting guys and the stage hands and all of that. That's also goes into how you treat these people who are around you, right? Most of them don't treat them well, but many of those who I just mentioned do. They always were nice to the employees and the workers who work the venues and who work in the studios and so on and so forth. So the fact that this list is so short, I'm sure it's not exhaustive, and I'm sure that there are nice stories about many other musicians. But I think that the fact that this list is short tells a lot. Unfortunately, tells a lot. Now I know that a lot of people haven't been mentioned who could be or should be, but that's the nature of it. These are those who come to mind real quick right at the top of my head, and many people might raise an eyebrow about the fact that I don't mention Dio, even though I'm such a big fan of his voice and his work, and he was in general a nice guy. And the reason I don't include him in this list, although he sort of kind of belongs here, is because he had his big share of feuds, both with the members of Sabbath and with Vivian Campbell. I tend to believe Campbell before Dio died or before he made a 180 on that. Right now he blames Dio's wife, but I'm not saying he's 100% right because I don't know, but I tend to believe him much more. And Vinny's silence on the topic speaks volumes. So that's what it is. But let's end on a positive note. So all of these people deserve major thanks and kudos and consideration because even in situations where others tend to behave pretty much like animals, they behave like gentlemen and they did the right thing. And of course, I'll get you on the next one. In the meantime, don't forget to keep rocking on and on and on and on.